Dr. Jaijit Bhattacharya, who's the president at C-DEP Research, joining us now from New Delhi. Dr. Bhattacharya, thank you very much for joining with us today, and good afternoon. We're seeing now a response from a Dr. Jean Kasayaya, the head of Africa's Centres for Disease Control and Prevention, urging Africa to step up their own fight against Ebola and not to rely on these external nations for support, as well as a fund that's been set up, attracting so far $80 million. There's still no patient zero that's been found for this outbreak. Dr. Bhattacharya, how do you think that these nations are going in this fight against Ebola, considering the multitude of difficulties that they've had to deal with this outbreak, and also in consideration with how the international community is responding to the outbreak as well?
Yeah, Ebola as a virus has been around and detected for a very long time, for decades. And yet we see that there is no effective and economically viable vaccine out there. Whatever vaccine was there in the market, there was a 2-dose vaccine by a European manufacturer that has been withdrawn. There are about 15 vaccine candidates that are being looked at, but there is no sense of urgency. There isn't enough funding to push it through, especially if you compare with what happened during COVID, where at unprecedented speed, vaccines were created and distributed at massive scale. But that's not happening when it comes to viruses impacting Africa. And it's not just viruses impacting Africa. There are a whole bunch of neglected diseases or diseases which are happening in the tropical areas, but because the paying power of the people are less, the big pharma companies do not find it lucrative enough to invest into the research needed to create a cure for these diseases. And therefore, there are a whole bunch of diseases in Africa, in LATAM, in Asia, which is not really getting addressed by the current market structures, which are driven by the big pharmaceutical companies. And therefore, what we hear from the African Voices and from what the chief drug controller of Africa is saying is that there needs to be an African funding to develop some of these pharmaceutical solutions. And I think is absolutely bang on. And it's not just for Ebola, it's also for other neglected diseases, as well as future strains of viruses and bacteria that may impact the African population.
Dr. Bhattacharya, so far, this outbreak, they've had to deal with not only this disease that has no vaccine, and there's also the fact that it's spread to some areas controlled by militant groups as well. Of course, this disease is presenting a massive challenge for the local community, for the local health workers on the ground. How long do you think we can expect this outbreak to last, given the fact that they still don't have a vaccine available?
No, it's very difficult to predict how long it will last. Again, I'm not an expert in virology, but from the previous experience, it has carried on for a long time. It may not have exploded, it may have got contained, but also given the ground conditions where the regimes under which the virus is spreading are not really conducive to a civilian response. And hence, if a large number of population gets impacted very quickly, then suddenly it'll go out of hand and it'll spread outside of Africa also. So there is a reason for the rest of the world to also be alerted about the Ebola virus and to step into support, however challenging the ground conditions may be, because it'll soon impact everyone else in the world if we do not contain it the way India contained the Nipah virus in Kerala. If you're not able to contain the Ebola virus, it'll spread very, very quickly.
Indeed. Dr. Bhattacharya, thank you very much for joining with us today. Excellent to hear some of your expertise in this.